Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the cruising show here on Northern Viking Explorer. If you're new here, my name is Ken. I'm here with my wife, Andrea, and you can watch us here on YouTube, you can watch us on Facebook, or you can listen to us on your favorite podcasting platform under the cruising show, or just head on over to thecruisingshow.com, and that'll take you to our website where you can find the podcast as well. Today, we are going to be chatting about the cruise port of Sitka, Alaska, and make sure you let us know in the comments section below where you're from. I see a Pelilla is here from Las Vegas, and the rest of you, please comment where you're from. Hello, Stephen. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, we love cruising, so we're really glad that you are here. We love to talk cruising. We're so glad for this opportunity because I think we drive all our friends and family a little crazy with all our cruise chatter. So thank you for joining us so we can talk a little more cruising.
Yeah, we haven't actually done a live stream in a little bit, probably since the beginning of the summer. We did do a few cruises this summer, and we're back at it now, back in real life. So it's time to get right back into it. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us. Make sure you comment in the comment section, and we like to try and bring those comments into the show as well. So again, we're going to be chatting about the cruise port of Sitka, Alaska.
Now, this is a place I always wanted to go, and I was so excited that we've been able to visit there now twice. First, I'd heard of Sitka was actually from the movie The Proposal.
Even though, most of the movie's not filmed in Sitka.
Most of it's actually filmed on the East Coast, but it's supposed to take place in Sitka, and some of it does. So
yeah, it's beautiful in the movie.
It is,
and it's beautiful in real life.
Absolutely, it's gorgeous.
So yeah, we hadn't actually been there before this summer, but we went twice this summer to Sitka, Alaska. We went with Royal Caribbean on the Ovation of the Seas, and we went with Princess on the Crown Princess. So we visited twice, and it's actually one of my favorite Alaskan ports now.
It's beautiful. It's really pretty. I think we should start with a couple quick facts though about Sitka.
Yeah.
Just to give some people an overview, because if you're like me, you may not know a lot about Sitka. Sitka's actually on an island. So it's not part of the mainland. So it's on the island of Baranof Island, and it's considered the inside passage. Now, the first people to live in Sitka are the Tlingit, who are still there today. And then what makes actually Sitka really interesting is it was the capital of Russia, America. So it was the capital of Russia, America. So it has very Russian influence.
I didn't know that until we went there. I knew it had a lot of Russian influence, but I didn't know it had been the capital.
Which makes it really interesting because you'll see that in the buildings and in part of the culture. There's a blending between indigenous cultures and Russian culture and American cultures. It's a very quite interesting place. Now, in 1867, the U.S. purchased Alaska from Russia in Sitka. So that's where the signing happened. So it's quite a historical place.
Yeah. And we'll talk about a little bit more, I think, about where that happened a little bit later on in this stream. So yeah, a really, really cool port.
It's definitely a favorite of mine as well.
Yeah. So it's, I guess why don't we just dive into the dock and the cruise terminal, first of all. Where we docked both times, it was not right in Sitka. It was about a 10 or 15 minute bus ride. They had free shuttles that took us into Sitka. For those of you watching on the live stream, on the video stream, this is what the port looks like. There's actually a container port right next to it. There's lots of kind of tour buses that pick you up. And the building there actually has, I don't want to say a lot of shopping, but there's a few different shops. There's jewelers, there's coffee shops, that sort of thing.
Even you can buy stuff made out of fur and stuff. Like there's very Alaskan and Sitka type things that you can purchase right there. And some little restaurants and stuff too.
For sure. And it's nice because you just walk right off the ship.
It's very convenient.
You're not tendering, you're not having, I don't want to say waste time, but you get your kind of whole day in Sitka. We did have to line up though.
We did. You know what? The line sometimes looked long, but it moved really quickly. I think we maybe waited at the most 20 minutes. It was very well organized, and there was a lot of buses running.
And that was with 2 ships in port. as well. I don't even know that we waited 20 minutes when there was 2 ships because the um, Cunard ship was there as well.
Well,
One
that's
day.
true. Yeah.
Yeah. So there was 2 ships there, and I don't know that we waited that long to get on the bus, which took us right into kind of the downtown area.
No, but there is another, I shouldn't say another, they will tender right into downtown if there's more ships.
They will. So we haven't docked at the other port.
No.
So there can be days when there's 4 ships, 3, 4 ships in there, and we're not sure where that is.
They actually, I did look. It's
Okay.
actually, they call it Crescent Harbor.
Okay.
And it goes right to that Harrington Centennial Hall where they drop us off as well from
Okay.
the buses. It goes to the same place.
So if you've been to Sitka and you're wondering about I'd love to hear if you've gone to the other port, because I think the priority port is the one we went to, where if there's only 1 or 2 ships, they go there, and then as it gets busier, they
Tender in more.
Yeah. So I'd love to hear about that process if you've done that. But yeah, the 15-minute kind of 10-15-minute bus ride into town. I should mention there were excursions being sold there as you got off the ship as well.
And I can't say it was on every single bus, but the 2 times we went, our bus drivers narrated on the way into Sitka.
Mm-hmm.
So they told us about the history of Sitka, what we were seeing, about the weather. So the 15 minutes goes very fast when they're telling you all about the area that you're going to visit.
Well, and the one guy was quite humorous as well.
He was
a young guy, and he was quite humorous. So, but I mean, they are trying to get tips and stuff as well. And so I think if you're funnier, you're more likely to get tips. But it's super friendly, and you weren't required to tip. It was a complimentary shuttle. So
it ran very well. It was very well organized. When we went.
And it was clean. It was nice. It was modern. Mm-hmm. So now once you get to downtown, so we're going to go through a couple of different categories here. We've got downtown. And then we're going to talk about some of the bigger excursions that get done there as well. So some of the things in downtown you might consider excursions, but they're more central. And even some of the other excursions later aren't that far from downtown.
True.
We'll just kind of dive into that. So downtown, do you want to talk about where they drop you off a little bit?
Yeah, so they drop you off right at the Harrington Centennial Hall, which is a beautiful building. It's got lots of clean restrooms. There's a visitor booth there with information. There's maps. There's a water bottle refill station. And then in the same parking lot is a library, which I believe had free Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I think it did. So right in the same parking lot, even if you don't want to do anything, you could go read a book in the library all day. And it's a cute little town that way for sure.
It was really pretty too, right there. Like it's beautiful, right on the water.
I should mention where they drop you off is also where they pick you up. And a line does build up there as well to take you back to the ship. So the buses just go back and forth all day. So, if don't wait till the last second to go line up for a bus. But even there, I think at the longest we waited was 10 or 15 minutes as well. So beautiful little town. So once you get to downtown, about a block away is the main Lincoln Street.
And it is the famous street of Sitka. When you think of classic Sitka, it has that Russian influence, those historical buildings.
The church. Everybody, I think, who's planned a trip there has seen the picture of the church, and that's right on Lincoln Street.
It is really cute and picturesque.
So
it's super close.
It's the Russian Orthodox Church, St. Michael's Cathedral. So, and that's about a block away from the Centennial Hall. So a really nice short walk. Lots of boutiques.
Oh, really nice stores. I would say Sitka is not your place to go get your basic souvenirs that you see in other ports. It's not your 2 t-shirts for $20 and your really cheap keychains. They have them, but they have much better. They have really beautiful boutiques. And beautiful quality items.
Candle shops, fur shops, different things like that.
A salt shop from like Alaskan salt. And they're really pretty. Every store is just beautiful and interesting and unique. There's a Russian store with the dolls that fit in.
The nesting dolls,
and a lot of Russian heritage stuff. it's really interesting.
I want to go back to the souvenirs there. This was not the port where there was a lot of like cheap t-shirts and keychains. So you'll find a lot more of that in Ketchikan and in Juneau and even Skagway. So if you're going here and you don't see, maybe you're just bringing them back for family, some keychains and t-shirts, don't panic if you don't see them here, because there was not a lot of that.
I did see some. There definitely is some, but this was where you want to find that beautiful special blanket, or that they had fur hats and reindeer, really interesting things.
Yeah. The other thing, little coffee shops. There was a few of them through the town. Some are kind of nestled behind and tucked down in the basement. The cool thing I remember seeing, so I wanted to mention there's a movie theater there. Like a small old movie theater.
Yeah.
And it has a little kind of arcade and pinball machines in there as well. So that was really quite neat. If you're not into doing anything else, you can
maybe if the weather's really bad.
Yeah, you could do that. And the other thing, there was a lot of pop-up vendors. So a couple that I noted, there was one selling reindeer hot dogs.
Right.
They weren't cheap.
Nope.
And you could also buy fresh crab and they would cook it right there. And it was kind of like street vendors doing that. It might have been from some of the restaurants as well, having like pop-up shops, but there was all that. And you could go look at, they showed us the crab. It was really neat. So
now you're not going to find the crab at a cheaper rate, though. It is the going market price. So don't think you're going to get cheap discounted crab, though.
Lurker Troy says he's going next year and he loves watching the videos. Yeah, we appreciate that. And yeah, you will love Sitka. It's awesome. Definitely awesome for sure. So any other thoughts on the downtown area there before we kind of move on to the cathedral?
If you love shopping, you're going to want to leave a couple hours to visit, because there's so many little shops to visit if you really want to take your time.
Well, and it's definitely just because there's so many unique things in the town.
And we should actually mention, when there's more than 5,000 passengers in town, or like ships with over 5,000 capacity, they closed Lincoln Street from 10 to 4. So it becomes pedestrian only. So it's really nice just to walk through, and it has that, almost feels like a fair. There were people busking and playing music. So it just really hits all the senses.
Yeah. So the one time we were there, Lincoln Street was open, and the other time it was shut down and you could just walk down the street. So it does change. So the St. Michael's Cathedral is kind of the center. It's almost it's in the middle of a roundabout, kind of. You can actually drive right around it.
It's really cool.
It's really cool. And it is open to go in.
It is.
It is free, but by donation during our visit.
Yeah.
And it was quite busy.
It was quite busy. It is limited hours, though. The visitors can only go between 12 and 2. And on Sundays, they do have a service at 9 o'clock.
Okay.
So you have to have 2 hours, though, to visit during the regular time for visitors.
And it is quite amazing inside. Lots of stuff to look at.
Now, the original did burn down.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they did. But they were able to save some of the items inside, and they did rebuild it right away. But yeah, which is too bad. But
so Google Maps, though, does say it's a 0.1 of a mile or a 3-minute walk from the Centennial Hall where you get dropped off. Now, I think that's probably from the street in front of the hall. So I don't know. It's probably more like 5 minutes. It's actually quite close. So
it's very close.
It's, but it's definitely a fun stop. If it is open, I'd peek your head in there. Because even though there was a lot of people, it didn't take very long to go visit.
No, and this is, when you think of Sitka, that is what you think of.
Now, the other, I really enjoyed this, and you might think it's weird.
I know it's kind of weird to talk about, isn't it?
The Sitka Russian Cemetery on Observatory Street. So not too far from there. It says 0.4 of a mile or a 10-minute walk from the Centennial Hall there. It was neat.
It's really neat. It's actually...
Whoa, where'd my photo go? There we go.
It is a 200-year-old cemetery that is still used by the Russian Orthodox Church. And people do tend to it frequently to clean it up. But because it's such a dense rainforest, the rainforest takes over right away. It like
Yeah.
covers the plots and really hides a lot of the plaques and the markers.
Well, the cemetery's in the forest.
Mm-hmm.
So you walk up the road and into the forest and you enter the cemetery. And some of the tombs, I guess, are very old.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some modern
Yeah.
ones as well.
Yeah.
So it's not just 100 years old. It's
new. It's
modern
still being
as well.
used.
But what made it really creepy is it was really, really quiet in there. And we could just hear the birds going. "Ah."
The one time we went,
Yeah,
first time,
the
the
first
birds
time.
were so loud.
Mhm.
It was a little unnerving. I was glad it was still daylight. Otherwise, I would have ran back to the ship.
I was actually surprised how big it was too. It's quite large, and just a really nice stroll through there.
Yeah, it's interesting. Very interesting.
Not too far away. I would recommend going to check it out.
Very
It's really
interesting.
quite neat. There's a couple other things I know.
We should talk about the other little plot, though.
Yeah. So do you want to talk about that?
So this is Princess. Oh, I'm gonna butcher this. It's Maksutov's grave, and she was married to the last Russian governor. So
Okay.
actually, when we were looking for the other cemetery, we found this one first.
It's about a block over.
Yes.
Yeah. So not too far.
We're one street over.
And that was an interesting stop as well.
Yeah, I believe it's just the one grave here.
Mm-hmm.
It's much smaller.
So, I mean, if you're heading up there, you may as well go check this one out as well. It's kind of a little plaque there. And
they're all very close together.
Yeah, it's not a big town, so it's
no, it's very everything's nice and close.
So now I know we'd already kind of talked about the signing and the selling of Alaska
to the U.S.
to the United States. So where that happened was at the Baranof Castle State. Well, it's the historic site now. They also call it Castle Hill, and also known as the American Flag Raising Site.
And it too is very close to the Harrington Centennial Hall. About 0.3 of a mile or a 5-minute walk.
Yeah, and there's a couple ways to get there. There's the back way, the staircase up off of Lincoln Street, or you can go around from the other side and walk up
more the waterfront.
More the waterfront.
You get really good views from up here, and there's lots of information, a lot of historical plaques that tell you all about the history of Sitka up there. So if you want to learn a lot, you can. If you just want to take in the views, you can.
Yeah, there's cannons.
There's cannons.
You can check out the cannons, and then there are great views from up there as well. So more towards downtown, and
it is wheelchair accessible too. There's stairs, but there's also a ramp.
It is. It's still. I don't want to call it steep, but it's still a hill.
It is still a hill. And actually, before, originally the Tlingit, they used it for fortification as well to protect. So it's a very historical, very interesting, beautiful site.
So Fred was just there last week.
Oh.
So and I appreciate that you enjoyed our videos. So I love seeing your hole in the tree, Ken. Dared Andrea to crawl in there in the national park. Yes, there was that little hole in the bottom of the tree along the, I think it was the totem trail. Yeah, it was the totem trail.
You can always wonder what's inside those hollowed out trees.
To be honest, when I looked in the hole in the tree, I thought you were gonna because you never know if there's gonna be a squirrel or an animal in there.
A squirrel would be good.
But I'm always scared that something's gonna jump out and scare me, or you're gonna scare me from behind. So
I thought about it.
But yeah, that was. We're actually gonna get to.
We'll talk about that.
That was in the. Where is it? In the Sitka National Historical Park, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So, yeah. So from there, Baranof Castle. And now, did you already mention how far? That's about a 5-minute walk as well.
And it's basically on the far end of Lincoln Street, where all the shopping and vendors. So if you head kind of to the end of that where it changes, you'll find Baranof Castle there.
For sure. Now, so let's jump off of downtown, and probably half the stuff that we're going to talk about here is still just on the edges of downtown. But we'll talk about some of the main attractions in Sitka, because there are some hiccups as well. There main attractions. So,
and the hiccup involves transportation. So I think we should talk about our personal story the first time we got to Sitka
Sure.
and what we didn't know. I thought I was smart. I thought I had done my research and had a plan.
Yeah.
Because Sitka has a city bus. It's called the Ride. It's quite affordable. It's $2. I don't mind taking the city bus, especially for $2. That's great. But I didn't realize it doesn't run on the weekends.
Yeah, no weekend rides on the city bus, which we didn't realize till we got there. So conveniently, though, about a block up from where we get off, there was a tourism booth, and we went and talked to them, and they said no, not on the weekends. And there's the bus stop. There's lots of bus stops. It was just they weren't running.
And they did warn us too. Sitka's small. There's not a lot of people living in Sitka. So when they get all these tourists in town, they can become overwhelmed. And one of the places that shows is actually with taxis. And they said, you may take a taxi ride and you may not be able to get a taxi ride back because they're in such demand. So we felt like we were in a bit of a pickle there.
I think we disappeared there. Hopefully you guys can see us. I'm not sure why we disappeared. Yeah, so yes, the taxis aren't necessarily reliable, and that's what they were saying at the visitor center. So that
you can just imagine a small town and you have way more people than what live there. So they can be swamped. So, but there was a solution.
There was a solution. We actually walked back to the Centennial Hall there, and there was actually several vendors selling, I don't want to call them excursions, but different transportation methods. So we paid $25 each for a hop-on, hop-off ride with tribal tours. And so we could get on and off as many times as we wanted throughout the day, and it drove around town. I want to say it came every half an hour to each of the stops. So, yeah.
I do want to mention with that, though, if you're planning on going with a large group, we saw there was a big party and they struggled because there might only be like 5-6 seats open on the bus. So if you got a party of 15, that's going to be difficult for you all to get on one bus together.
Yeah.
So that may not, I would call them if you're going with a large group.
Now, Andrea, Lurker Troy here is asking, do we remember if there was benches around town?
Now, I remember along the waterway, there were a lot of benches along the water.
I remember we waited for our kids down
at
the bus stop area. There was buses, or by the washroom there was benches there.
I don't recall on Lincoln Street how many benches were there.
No.
But definitely along the water, if you walk towards the park, there were a lot of benches all the way.
Yeah. So, and I appreciate you saying that we're back. So I don't know why we disappeared there. So we did the hop on, hop off with tribal tours. Is that where we were at? I think. And so we did a couple of stops. We'll start out with Fortress of the Bear.
And this is the one that you really need the transportation for. We personally could have walked the rest of the stuff in town we wanted to do, but Fortress of the Bear is too far.
Well, Fortress of the Bear is, I have it written down here, 5.5 miles, or well, that's a long walk. I don't know how long. It'd be a couple hours from the Harrington Centennial Hall. So that's the one you do need it. Now, there are some catches to the Fortress of the Bear, though. Do you want to talk about those?
Yeah, and this can catch people off guard and again upset them. When there's more than 5,000 passengers in town, they don't allow walk-ins. So if you want to go, you need to have pre-booked with a tour, like with your
cruise line or a private excursion. Yeah. So actually, I do have. Let's see here. I'll bring up their website. So on the Fortress of the Bear website, they've got that right on there. That basically the same days that Lincoln Street is closed, you do need to have an excursion booked. Now on their website, I did see it somewhere.
That is for the bears because they're concerned about them. So
they did have a list of alternative tours and transportation on their website, so you could check that out. And so fortressofthebear.org.
And they have all the pricing and hours are right on their website as well. So adults were $15, $5 for 8 to 18-year-olds, and 7 and under were free. They have a really lovely gift shop. And a lot of information about the bears. They try to they're not a zoo. They're there to help the bears. And they have history of why the bears are there and how they ended up there.
Yeah.
It's a very educational, but it's really special because you're quite close to them.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a couple, you can be above them. So I believe there was 3 black bears and 3 brown bears. They're in separate habitats. You're kind of above them, but if you're in the gift shop as well, you can see them through the window. And
which is really cool because
Yeah.
when we were there, they were standing up and they were looking at the people above or trying to see them. And it looked like they were smelling the people in the air.
I do wonder though if they feed them from above, like the center, because it's like they were waiting for food to be thrown down.
Or maybe they thought food was up there.
It could be, yeah. If you're worried about bears, always make sure you go out with someone slower than you, is what they say.
There was also a lot of eagles there.
We
saw quite close. They were
bald eagles.
It was beautiful. So and I really just enjoyed being able to see the bears like interacting with each other and picking up different objects. It was fun. I really enjoyed that.
And I would go back.
Yeah, it made my heart happy.
Yeah. And they all had fun names too. I can't remember the names. So we went to another stop, and this isn't actually the order we did them in. So, but we'll go. We went to the Alaska Raptor Center as well, which was another stop from Tribal Tours. Now you can actually walk there. We actually walked back from there. It's about 1.1 miles or 30 minutes. So,
and it's a little bit higher up in altitude, not like high on a hill. So if you're walking back, you're actually kind of walking down into town.
Yeah. And there's some trails, so hiking trails up there. And there's also birds. Lots of birds, lots of eagles. And they do put on a show there as well, like a demonstration. There's a gift shop. And yeah, really, really cool place. They
take care of over 200 birds a year, again, like trying to take care of their health. And they explain again why they have them there. It's very interesting.
Now, pricing for that, again, $15 for adults, 6 to 12-year-olds were $6, and 5 and under were free. So if you don't mind walking, don't feel like you have to take a shuttle there. You could easily walk that 1 mile.
You could.
Yeah.
And they were open from 8 to 3:30 in the summer, 7 days a week.
I did enjoy that.
It did, especially if you were going with children. It would be a really good thing to take kids to. Yeah. It's really nice, just like the bears.
And then it's quite affordable with the reduced kind of tweens pricing, and then the kids 5 and under.
When you talk about excursion prices, these are a bargain here in Alaska.
Yeah,
they're definitely a bargain.
So the our first stop actually on the travel shuttle was to the Sitka National Historical Park.
And this one is also a free stop.
It was free. Now, if you're not doing the bears and you don't mind walking, this is kind of on the way to the Raptor Center. Also.
And it's a beautiful walk, because the one time we went, we did walk it because it's along the water.
Yeah.
And it's totally, if you have the time and ability and the weather is good, it's totally worth the walk, because the walkway and the ocean, it's beautiful.
Yeah. So 0.7 of a mile roughly from the Harrigan Centennial Hall, or 15-minute walk. And there's a big, I think I've got a photo of it here if you're watching on the stream. So there's a big visitor center that has, there's information in there. So there's workers in there who will answer questions for you. There's a short little film if you want to learn. There's exhibits, there's artifacts, and there's even carvings in there. So there's restrooms as well.
And they'll teach you about the different types of poles and how they're from the different nations. There's information. It's very helpful.
And then from there, there's hiking. So there's 2 loops. There's the totem trail, which has, I don't know how many, but lots of totems on it. And then there's the Russian Memorial Loop, which is more of a nature loop.
So the first one is the one I would recommend if you're only going to do one of them. It's along the water and it has the totem poles. Yeah. So it's unique and very interesting. The other one, of course, is beautiful, but it's walking predominantly just through the forest.
I would agree. And even if you do the just the totem loop, uh, I know at times of the year it goes by the river and there's a little bridge that goes over to the Russian Memorial Loop. I would at least go to the bridge to see if the fish are spawning, because I know at certain times of the year you can see lots of fish down below. Even if you're not going to do the Russian Memorial Loop, I would check the bridge out.
It was we had decent weather both times. Parts of it though were a little soggy. It's definitely,
it was damp and misty kind of.
And be prepared, you might see a bear. We did see bear poop.
Yeah.
A big pile.
Yeah.
So I don't think this
on the second time we went there.
Yeah, I don't think it was a little bear.
No little bear. But a fun stop, and again, that is free. So
yeah,
really cool.
It's cool and beautiful and interesting. It's a win-win.
So now the other place, and we didn't go there either time, but we stopped in on the second time.
And I actually would have considered going there, but again, it was sold out.
Yes. Yeah.
So again, this is a place that if you want to do this, you need to check in ahead.
The Sitka Sound Science Center. It was, so I think what actually drew us in there, because we went at the beginning of July and then we went at the beginning of August. Now, when we went at the beginning of August, there were so many fish in the ocean outside of the science center. So the science center has a little aquarium, and then there's a hatchery as well. And the fish, they had a net up blocking the fish from getting in. There were so many fish.
They're jumping.
Thousands of fish.
Jumping. Look, and it's just thick with fish. I've never seen anything like it.
No, I haven't either.
And we have salmon spawning by us, but I've never seen it, the density like this.
No, there was a crazy amount of salmon. There was actually people fishing there as well on the breakwater. If you don't go in there, I would still go out to the breakwater and see, because that's where you saw the fish. It's right next to it. It was really cool.
Now, the pricing on the website was different than the pricing that we saw. They had a posted sign in the window.
Okay.
So I'm going to go with the pricing that they had on their door because it's more expensive than what was on the website.
Okay.
So for the aquarium, I have $12 for adults and $10 for 3 to 12-year-olds.
Okay.
And then there's a behind the scene tour that's 90 minutes and that runs about $45.
Okay.
So, but again, if you want to do these things, call them, find out how you can book it because as we said, it was already sold out.
Yeah. It was like, even like I said, just go to that area, and especially if you're later in the summer and see all the fish, because there was a lot of fish.
And you just follow from the Centennial Hall. You follow along the water. It's a beautiful walk.
Past the marina.
Yeah. And it's got lots of benches. It's a beautiful stroll, really a beautiful stroll.
Now, there's a few other stops. Now,
this one actually touches my heart a little bit. The Sitka Pioneer Home. It's now a senior's home for assisted living.
At the end of Lincoln Street. They've got kind of a monument of explorer on the kind of in the gardens. And it was neat.
It was neat. We actually went in because they said there was a gift shop. And so we went in to see the gift shop, but it was a very authentic, small gift shop. But what I wasn't expecting was to actually see the seniors living in the building were right there when we walked in.
Yeah,
so we got
talking to us, and
it was very sweet. And I think one of the highlights for our kids too.
Yeah.
It was very cute.
And then down actually over by the marina, we haven't done this one. We stopped out front, is the Russian bishop's house. And I believe that's kind of like, it's a Sitka National Historical Park as well. I think it's a little bit of a museum in there and what have you. So I don't know what that's like in there. Maybe next time we'll have to pop
or maybe
in
there. Tell us. I'd like to know.
For sure.
If we should stop in there next time.
And then the other one, and our tribal tours bus did stop here, is the Sheldon Jackson Museum. And this isn't far from the Science Center.
It's a big property though. Lots of buildings, big green fields.
And honestly, it looked so big, I didn't feel like we had time to do it.
No. Like sometimes you just got to make your choices and pick what you really want to do because there's not time for everything.
Yeah.
And in this area, there's also a playground and a
Mhm.
park. Like if you're coming with a family with small kids, right along the water, not too far from there.
You know, one of the coolest things that I remember seeing along by the marina, there's these big stones that are carved into like a whale.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Right.
feel
Yes.
like there was it a seal
I
or
remember
something?
the whale one.
There was a whale and there was something else. I think it
Turtle,
was.
maybe?
Oh, I think it was a seal.
turtle.
I don't know. Are there turtles in Alaska?
I don't know.
We did see a turtle and a crocodile though in Mexico.
We did in Puerto Vallarta.
Anyway.
And actually, this town though is well marked.
Yeah.
They even mark that there's a grocery store a couple blocks up.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the groceries are not cheap in Sitka.
No, we walked up there to get some beverages and some
Kind of look. I
snacks
was
with the
kind of
kids.
curious. I just wanted to see.
Yeah.
Things are definitely more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
There was also a bigger grocery store
Further down. So actually, our kids, we brought two of our teenagers with, and they ventured off on their own for part of the day. And they walked up to where the McDonald's had been. Unfortunately, the McDonald's shut down. I think they
were disappointed.
They were. I think they were looking for McFlurries, but that is no longer there. So if you're thinking there's a McDonald's there, it's gone. But there was a large grocery store up that way, and you drive past it on the shuttle bus, so you could see it. But yeah.
They'd walked a big loop. They were quite enjoying themselves. Yeah. I felt very safe in Sitka walking around, and you're not deep right in the forest. Like if you're scared of running into a bear, like Lincoln Street, you feel like your kids are safe.
Yeah.
Especially your teenagers.
Yeah. Well, and there's lots of like little restaurants and things that they can
venture in and look at. It's a very interesting place.
Yeah. Other than that, do we have any more on Sitka? I think that's most.
I think that's it.
Yeah. It was such a fun day.
It was, and I can't wait to go back and
yeah, hopefully.
Oh, I'm gonna go back.
Yeah.
I will go back.
No, and it's funny because we've been to Alaska before, but it didn't stop in Sitka. So it was nice to actually go there.
I really, really enjoyed Sitka, and I especially enjoyed the shopping, like the stores, the boutiques. I love the history with the Russian influence, just some unique things that you don't see anywhere else. It was really cool.
I 100% agree. It was a fun time. So I guess we'll wind it down there unless anyone has any quick questions that pop up. We'll wind the show down there. We don't have any cruises booked.
We don't. This is shocking.
This is actually the first time in a while. We're planning.
Yeah. Where should we go next?
If you know where we should go on a cruise next, leave it in the comment section below because we're shopping. But yeah, we appreciate you all. We've got some more videos coming up for sure that we want to share with you. So thank you everyone for joining us tonight. And I guess we'll see you next time on the cruising show. Take care, everyone, and have a wonderful day.